Welcome to Heart of the Issue, where Friends of Europe is beginning a new offering online where we speak to movers and shakers, those who have ideas, who have perspectives and challenges on the world that is as we're experiencing at the moment, both in Europe and the world, and to engage in a direct conversation for 10 minutes only to get to the heart of their particular perspective, issue, idea, or solution or commentary. Today, I'm joined by Sébastien Deletaille, who has been a tech entrepreneur extraordinaire, who has had some brilliant examples of how he's used tech for good and data for good. And today I want to talk to him about his new idea that he's trailing in Belgium around the use of big data in our fight against the coronavirus. Sébastien, tell us and treat us like children, if you will, to explain to us what's your idea in using big data in the fight against coronavirus.
With pleasure, Dharmendra. So my idea is, can we use telecom data to fight the coronavirus epidemic? And just where did this idea come from? It comes from our experience in combating similar epidemics in emerging markets. The company I co-created about 10 years ago was active in the fight against Ebola. We further were then invited to contribute in the fight against Zika. And we had also worked on other forms of epidemics, for example, eradicating malaria in different African countries. Maybe just before I explain where this idea comes from, put yourself in the shoes of our politicians. When they are confronted with this type of crisis and they see how exponential it is, they need to make very clear decisions. Do we just have public awareness campaigns? Do we set up confinement measures? Do we go into strict lockdowns and strict quarantine zones? And what strikes me as a digital entrepreneur is that politicians often make those decisions without any form of data. And that's really where I come in. I say, look, we have this mobile data that's collected systematically from all of our devices. It's absolutely possible to extract the patterns whilst respecting the privacy and then feed the thinking of our politicians. Here in Belgium, for example, in less than 5 days, we managed to get government approval, support from the mobile network operators, and we have already measured how the national confinement measures in Belgium have impacted your mobility. And so with data on the entire country, we've shown that the time you spend outside of your residential postal code, it has plummeted. It has gone down by 50%. That's more than 25% less than the average Sunday's activity.
How does this help? Sorry to interrupt you, but how does this help in the fight against the coronavirus?
So for the moment, the government has no feedback on the effectiveness of their confinement measures, for example. And so it helps in providing feedback, saying, okay, well, look, yes, it's producing the desired effect, and reduced mobility has been demonstrated to reduce human contact, hence reduce the propagation of the disease. And then it helps them decide, well, should we maintain the confinement measures, reinforce them, or reduce them? You have different levels, different degrees of confinement across Europe. In France, for example, it's much stricter than in Belgium. And so with Belgium, we've been able to already show with our level and our degree of confinement, this is the resulting outcome. If now we're basically encouraging France, Germany, England to produce the same type of insights, so then we could say all across Europe, based on your degree of confinement, this is how mobility is going to be reduced. And as a consequence, how is the disease going to continue to spread or not?
So you're providing that mega data to cities and countries about the impact of their lockdown, if I put it in simple terms, and whether it's actually having an impact on how people are moving about and when they're moving about and where they're moving about. But then countries then have to make sure they use that data against data in terms of the medical data, and whether actually the infection rate is going down or increasing and what's happening to that. So you're not involved in that part of it.
Well, actually, that's the next step that we've started, that we've kicked off yesterday, which was to mix all of the mobility information that we extract from the telecom data and combine it with epidemiology data. That allows us, for example, to predict where the disease is going to propagate in time, but more importantly, in space. You see, since the disease is propagated, transmitted through human contact, human mobility is the main driver of where the disease goes. When you rely on old databases that used to show, well, normally there are about 10,000 people that go between Brussels and Antwerp, all of those databases become immediately obsolete in the face of this type of crisis, in the face of confinement measures. And so the telecom data has the advantage of being near real time. It shows real behavior. And combined with the epidemiology data, it can translate into propagation maps that will once again feed the decision-making of the government.
How long before you get to mixing both the disease prevalence data and the mobility data?
We're already doing that today, and we're going to produce our first insights probably the day after tomorrow. And this is ultimately, two of my main arguments is how can we help government make fact-based decisions is a desirable outcome. And second, it's look how scalable and agile, this way of working is. It took us less than 5 days between launching, sharing the idea in a newspaper and getting government support. It took us an additional 5 days to crunch the data, and we were already providing the results to the government. So this is not a project that's going to deliver some form of results in 2-3 months. We've been able to produce the insights right away.
Real time. So what do people need to worry about? Because good ideas are always welcome in this context. Do we need to worry about our privacy?
So privacy is on top of everyone's mind. And that's why we said, how can we make this work in a privacy first mindset? So we're not working on individual data. We're not, contrarily to what you can find on some clickbait websites, there's no tracing that's happening where we're looking at you and saying, have you been in contact with a sick person? That's not what's happening. We're actually looking at the aggregate mobility patterns. For example, we're looking at how much time is spent outside of your residential postcode. From there, there's no concern about, can I be re-identified? Is this private data? Is this my data that's being exposed on the web? No, these are anonymous and aggregated analyses that are shared for decision-making, but they respect all of the legal rules, they respect your privacy, and that was a very clear condition from the Belgian state.
And what do you expect in terms of the short-term results? When do you expect that to come out? Is it in a week's time, 5 days' time, where we'll get a better sense of how the mobility data and the lockdown is having an impact on disease control and reduction?
So the mobility analyses are probably going to be published by the Belgian state either tomorrow or the day after.
Okay.
So yes, we're talking about really immediate impact. The propagation maps are probably not going to be published. They're going to be received by the Minister of Health, who will then make decisions, allocate resources accordingly. But that will probably not be published to avoid any form of stigmatization with zones that could be seen as high risk.
I see.
And then the final, the final element is we're planning to continue to produce these analyses over time, see whether the predictions actually are reliable, see how we can improve the data, improve the quality of the health, and epidemiology data. And it's with these feedback loops that hopefully will continue to flatten the curve.
2 final questions. Transparency. How important is it, and can people be trusting of what you're doing? And secondly, is the rest of Europe following your particular trailblazing idea?
So transparency, goes hand in hand with this, sensitivity for privacy. So what we've done is we've set up very clear governance committees that can actually stop our work. So on one hand, we set up an ethics committee with world-renowned experts in what we do. And so they have the purpose of listening what we're planning to do, giving us a guidance, putting vetoes on analyses that would go too far from an ethics point of view. And we are subject to the oversight of the Data Protection Authority, And this is the independent body, like within a country like Belgium, that controls what the government does in regard to data. And so we've set ourselves in a legal framework and in an ethical and privacy framework, which is extremely clean, extremely transparent, and our politicians are communicating what we're doing in the general media. And so on that mark, I think we're really doing a very good job. You're asking the question about how can this scale across Europe? As we speak, Commissioner Thierry Breton has set up a task force to see how we could generalize this whole use case. And what we're defending with Philippe de Backer, our Minister of Telecom, is that what we've already produced with the Belgian toolbox, that be just copy-pasted. Because it is a toolbox that respects privacy, that has all of the technical expertise, that has a very strong governance. So there's no point in reinventing the wheel. Let's just use it and go forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Sébastien. Let's hope people listen to this, watch it, are inspired by it. And most importantly, one of the things that's been lacking is an EU-wide response. And perhaps this is one initiative, hopefully, that can be scaled up and aggregated with speed, because that's what we need. Thank you for being on the heart of the issue. And we hope that people take heart from what you have to say. And those of you who've been viewing this, hopefully, if you do press the play button, that you found this refreshing and insightful and helped you get to the heart of the issue with Sébastien. Our next insight and video on this will be with someone who's going to be involved in the economic impact of the coronavirus. So keep your eyes peeled on our website. And if you need further information about Sébastien's initiative and other such activity, please visit Friends of Europe website. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time. Take care and mind your distance.